This is a conversation with Katy Swafford. Hi, Katy.
Hi.
So we're going to be talking today about Dr. Asen and about Eidetic imagery.
Good. I'm very pleased to be talking about Dr. Asen and his work in Eidetic imagery. It's a method that I have discovered after 30 years of being a therapist and found to be very effective, very fast, and an effective way of working with clients.
So we're going to talk, maybe most of this conversation you and I are having will be on the method itself, its underpinnings and how it works in a clinical setting. But maybe since USABP gave Akhtar one of its Pioneer Awards, maybe just a few words about Akhtar Asen's life and his work.
Good. Akhtar was born in Kashmir, educated in India, and came to the United States. He first lived in Philadelphia, and he currently lives in New York, in Yonkers. And he has developed this theory from science and from mythology. He's both a experimental psychologist and a mythologist. Joseph Campbell wrote the foreword to his one of his first books, Manhunt in the Desert, and since the beginning, he's published over 30 books. The most recent ones being The Quantum Image, and one on autism, and one on memory, Alzheimer's. So his work spans a good deal of time, and he originated it from science and his study of mythology, not only the one he was exposed to and raised in, but Viking mythology and in Greek mythology, and it's looking for the common threads of the different mythologies and religions that describe the human experience in a way, the universal mind.
Yeah, so maybe the universal mind, images, what's the link? What's it about these images?
The eidetic image is the image that an individual experiences is projected from their own consciousness. It's from their own mind, so it's personal. But it is also a reflection of their potentials as human beings and that's where mythology comes in, that's the, mythology is the universal mind. It's the broader, the greater reality. And then we all have our personal experience of that in our physical lives.
So this image is not just an abstract image. It's something. It's related to both mind and body.
That's correct. It is, and it's not the content of the image that is important, but the action of it, the process of it. Akhtar talks about it as a structural image, and that structure is ISM: the image, the somatic response, and then the meaning. So it's not the content of the image. It's not, you see an image and try to figure out what it means. You see the image and immediately become aware of the physical connection, the body response that is created by the image. So the link between what's seen and what's felt is the core of the eidetic image.
Right. So in other words, in ordinary language, when we think of image, it's like a snapshot. It's something that's in a way divorced from reality. It's a representation. And far from that, in the eidetic image, there is built in the connection with the feeling and the body sense of what happened together with the meaning.
Right. And the body connection is the central part of this. That those are, and the purpose is of the work is to develop the body connection and the image moving along together. That's the flow of consciousness. In this work, a symptom arises because there's a gap between what's seen and what's felt. So you may see an image and then you have a thought about it, and then your body responds to the thought rather than to the image. And that's the process of how the method works. In that way, when you ask a person to see an image, the instructions are very ambiguous. They're very general. So the person's own mind comes up with their version of the image. And if they are describing what they see related to the image, then you can expect that to be information about themselves kind of comes to the surface, and things move along and progress along normally. If the image is stuck, it's because their consciousness is stuck, and they are stuck. There's a connection between the symptom that somebody may have come in with, that their complaint or their problem that they want to work on in therapy, and you say, well, let's look and see. So you have them project an image, and you can see the symptom in that image.
So the image work, how does it fit in the context of therapy? Is this something where, in a way, from day one, every session, there is a working on an image? Is it something where, how does it come into the process of therapy?
That depends some on the experience and the expectation of the client. For the clients who come knowing a little about Eidetics, I may start from day one.
So in some cases, if people are already familiar with the process, you start right away with imagery, but in other cases, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. It depends on if they're in a crisis. Some of my therapy looks pretty traditional in terms of, understanding the problem and that. I nearly always do, though, in part of the intake, right at the last, the running stream image is one of my favorites as an introductory one. It's very short, and it just gives a snapshot of consciousness, of their, how they are feeling and what they see. And
what's it like, this running stream?
It's with 4 sentences. I'll tell you the instructions are to see yourself as the running stream. And I give a few minutes, part of a minute or two for them to develop that image. Mm-hmm. See the running stream that you are. Now see an obstacle in the distance. And see how you run through the obstacle and any difficulty it presents. And now notice what it's like downstream. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And then we talk about it. And they tell me what their stream looked like. If they're new at it, sometimes I do a little guiding the image of just calling their attention to notice the temperature of the stream, the banks, is it a sunny day or not? I don't make any interpretation about the content, but the feeling, and I feel the image with them as they tell me what they see. They may say it's a bright sunny day, and I see a bright sunny day with them. And they say that, and the water is cool, and it's fast moving, and it's going over some rapids, and I see that happening. So it's the process is an empathy process. Right. And I connect physically as well with their experience.
Yeah, so I hear that definitely as opposed to interpretation, right away it's working at the level of images and through the sensations of these images.
And through the sensations. It's actually the images are in terms of, sensation, perception, cognition, conation, the kind of the flow of understanding of conscious process. These images are at that first level of sensation. They are a sensation because they move straight into the body. Mm-hmm. And the connection between what you see and what you feel is the hallmark of it. And I'm constantly asking the person, as for instance, as you approach the obstacle, how did you feel? As the obstacle got closer, how did your feeling change? And then how did you run through it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they may describe, I split into two parts and I went around, and I may ask how it felt as you split and how it felt as you actually went around in great detail. I had one student, I was doing this in a class, and when I said, there's another part of the image actually, to see your parents in front and you're the running stream. And it was at that moment she burst out laughing, and I asked her after we were through with the image, she says, I saw my mother and I headed in the opposite direction. It's just like backwater going upstream. And she says, that's exactly my experience of my relationship with my mother. Mm. So the symptom shows up and the person's process shows up. If they're in a lot of turmoil, they may see rapids. If they're feeling really stuck, they may say that the stream is sluggish and warm and kind of yucky feeling. And that's what's going on in their mind, that's what their experience currently of their life is. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's an excellent diagnostic.
Yeah. So really, we're not talking about again image in a classic, everyday sense of the world, but a sense of a process of interacting with life.
Exactly. And the body process, the experiential process, is the core of that. That's what makes it really a body psychotherapy rather than a cognitive one. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So. You described this first stream imagery. How else do you work with image, say in the process of therapy? How does it come up?
Anytime there's a stuck place or a problem that you want to know more about, that's a time to do an image so that you can really see what's going on with the person. What you see in the image is, what comes out of the image is, these are things they can't just tell you. Or if they tell you, they don't have the solution for it. They can just tell you how stuck they are with it, what a problem it is. When you see it in the image, you can work directly with the image. For instance, if they see an obstacle in the running stream image and it's so big, you can do maneuvers within the image, see it again, only change the temperature, see it again, pay attention to this part of the image or another. So there's operations and maneuvers that you do within the image.
Right. So in a way, already in that process, you have a different relationship with the situation because it's not something that you experience passively, but you have some degree of control in terms of changing the angle, re-experiencing, changing some variables.
And just repeating the image over and over again many times is the mind will find its own way through it, and you'll have a release. So one of the first maneuvers is to project the image again and again.
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that image, because the first time we talked about image, you essentially guided people through a short process. But in the course of the process, say for instance when they're stuck, what kind of, do you ask them if they have a spontaneous image? Do you guide them in any way to find something?
The image has the solution in it. I'm thinking of, and so I'm trying to just figure the way to say, the guiding is really toward the structure. The guiding is toward, changing one of the physical properties of the image, like see it as cold, introduce a mythic quality about the wind.
Let's say you're in a session and you're noticing that the client is stuck. How do you introduce the call for an image at that moment?
I sometimes will just say, let's look and see. You've described this problem and you have this situation. Let's look at it through the image, and let's look at it this way. And then I just blurt it out, just start. Maybe see yourself as a running stream. And they may take a minute to settle in, and I may say that part again, so I may repeat it as they kind of go in. But the thing is, there's really no interpretation of the content of the image. Like, it doesn't matter if they see green trees or whatever, unless that means something to them. And so you don't need to do much introducing. Sometimes there's a little intro about, this will give us some new information, and then launch into it. There are images of nature, images of development, and images of a mythic nature. Mm-hmm. The images of nature give directly the body response. And the running stream is really all three of these, because you have the physical properties of the stream and the water and your body experience. But there is also a mythic quality to that image in terms of William James talked about the stream of consciousness. And Octor adds to that consciousness is not only a flowing, running stream. It's not only a flowing stream, it's a running stream. And he has a quote from a poet of, "You can't stop the mountain stream. If you try, it will cut through the mountain and cut through the rocks and open the heart of the mountain." Mm-hmm. And, the Grand Canyon's made like that. So there is a universal or a more mythic, a greater reality to the flow of consciousness. That is the flow of consciousness in that running stream image. And then part of the image, like I described with the woman, you can introduce the developmental, get some developmental information and introduce that by the simple instruction to see your parents in front, and you are the running stream. See your father in front, your mother in front, and you're the running stream. And that will bring up the quality, the nature of the relationship with parents. People will say things like, my father's not looking at me. He's there, but he's not looking at me, and I just go past and he never notices me. Well, guess what happens in their life?
Yeah.
It's a projective process. So the image that gets projected, just like other projective tests and such, it shows you what's going on.
Yes, and I hear that this projection is within the context of something that is a powerful metaphor, an archetypal image, something that in a way connects with the flow of life, the Tao, so something much larger than simply any projection.
It does, exactly. Because we live, our natural lives are both biological, our current experience. But our spiritual life is, our life is much like everyone's life, and like it has been for centuries. And so we also have a mythic destiny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the three components of the image included the somatic, but also the meaning part.
The meaning emerges. You come to understand it, like you know, oh yeah, that's how my father is. You know, he doesn't see me. And, oh yeah, that means these feelings I have, it's like people then will start talking about memories. They'll start talking about thoughts and situations in their history. But after they've projected the image, those things are connected and integrated. Whereas if you just ask them, what was your relationship with your father? They might say, oh, it was distant and he didn't really pay much attention to me, but they wouldn't be having the body contact with that statement. They wouldn't have the experience of it. Mm-hmm. After they've seen it in the image, you have an entirely different conversation about their situation.
Yeah. So in a way, throughout the therapy, there is a therapeutic aspect per se, but there's also, in a way, a training of connecting the sensation, connecting the meaning, and through the intermediary of the image, which is central in the way that mind functions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that speaks to that it's really the body process and opening experience and counting on experience and removing obstacles, things that limit your experience. That's where development comes in. And there's a whole set, there's a set of 30 developmental images that give you a complete picture of development, of traumas in development, of strengths in the relationships between the client and mother, the client and father, and mother and father together. So you get these 30 snapshots of the dynamic in the history growing up in the family.
So what's one of them, for instance, in a clinical situation? Can you?
Yeah. The first one, and I use these first two images as routinely, and then if we want to do a full developmental picture, we do all 30 of them. But the first one is about the house, and the instruction is to see your parents in the house where you lived most of the time with them, the house that gives you the feeling of a home. Where do you see them, and what are they doing? And that's the content of the image. And then in the intake, I ask people where they were born and what houses they've lived in and what ages up to when they went off to college or so. Because it turns out that the atmosphere in the home is crucial to the development of the child, and the relationships with each of the parents affect the image that's projected. I see my father in the living room and he's reading the paper, and I say, and how do you feel when you see him, when you see this image? That's the important link. And they'll say, I feel kind of anxious because I know I shouldn't bother him. And you've got a snapshot there. That's what happened in their home.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I've also had people find strengths with mother as the nurturer often shows up in the kitchen. And if she doesn't, somebody needs to be taking care of business in the kitchen, you know. And I had one client just kind of laugh. She says, I saw my mother in the kitchen with a little apron on, and she was cooking, and she laughs and she says, my mother never cooked, and I never saw her in that apron. On the other hand, her mother did nurture her and take care of her and, did her job as a mother. And so the image showed up in a traditional kind of sense, even though the historical reality was that mother wasn't much of a cook. That didn't affect the kind of mythic reality that her mother had. She had a good mother, and her mother nurtured her and took care of her. And so when she projected the image, her mother showed up in the kitchen.
Yeah. So that image, again, is not a snapshot, but is a structure of the relationship.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That shows the structure of the relationship. It's not a memory.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have had a memory of that.
So since it's interesting, so it's not a memory, so does this image evolve over time as people digest their relationship or the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they may have, for instance, they may be mother's in the kitchen, but I'm standing outside and I feel separate from her because and that will happen when there's conflict in the relationship. Like I shouldn't approach mother or she's not available to me. And I'm not in the kitchen with her. And then as you work through the developmental glitches in consciousness, you'll look back and they'll say, oh yeah, I'm mother's cooking and I'm in the kitchen, I'm playing with my toy. The image changes.
Mm-hmm.
As the blocks it shows you the blocks, and then once they're released, it shows you that they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's very much a dynamic process, and you can check in any time and see how things are going,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can revisit the same situation, yeah.
Yeah, and then some of the work kind of associated with that is to do the house projections. And then there's some mythic work with the tiger is the blessed beast of our nature, and working with the tiger imagery, at a mythic level, and then return to the house with the tiger. You've changed the feeling state of the person, that they've surfaced, developed resources that they were unaware of. It's another of the concepts of that we're born with a whole array of potentials. Some of those get developed and others are not stimulated. They're not really developed, but because of what's going on in our lives as we grow up, and you get to a point where you need the ones, you've developed the parts of yourself to handle the traumas and the kid brother being born and moving and all those things that happen in childhood. But the ones you need are the ones that you didn't develop. Self-confidence and security and those things. So you can develop those by connecting to the greater reality, at the mythic level. And then go back to the house with the tiger, and they'll say, for instance is, oh, when I walk in with the tiger, my mother looks up and says hi. It's like if I am myself, there was a change in the person's consciousness, and the image of mother who had been aloof and distant previously changed.
Yeah. So that in a way there's some parts that we haven't had a chance to develop that we can develop by working with the archetypes. We
absolutely can. And Octor talks about that these are archetypal images, but they're he says there's doubt, you couldn't even count them. They are all archetypal, all of the mythic images.
Mm-hmm.
And they connect with doing some of the work with the tiger is just you see a empty space to the right and a little in front, and a tiger comes out of that space, and you look at the tiger and see how it breathes and see the light that comes out of its eyes and recognize this is really you. And people will say, I knew it was me right from the first minute. It's a 600-pound tiger and I'm not scared. So they recognize the quality of being, that it connects with their own being. It is them.
Yeah, yeah. So as I'm listening to you, in what you say and in your tone of voice, I also hear a sense of the therapy session being an invitation in part to also go into another kind of time and space, and in that mythological time and space, different from ordinary reality, and an enrichment that comes from inhabiting that space.
Yes, it's actually eternity. It's timeless. And clients often comment on, this feels like I've always been here, or it feels like I've gone back to my ancestors' time, or, that time doesn't have a limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In contrast to maybe the crisis in our life where we feel like we're in a tight spot, we're in a corner, we're in a bind, and all that sense of limitation.
Yes, very pressured.
Mm-hmm.
One of the qualities of this work is a relaxation of that tight bind of time and pressures from current world, to that there's plenty of time, and that there's that I am in a process, and time is not a factor. Time is not a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So is this a good place maybe to end?
Actually, the one thing I might add is that this process is a pleasure for the therapist, that it doesn't create burnout or vicarious traumatization, because the therapist moves through the image with the client, through the empathy. And I find it very stimulating and releasing and thoroughly satisfying work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Katy. This recording is part of the Somatic Mindfulness and Relational Psychotherapy podcast. See the website relationalimplicit.com.
And time is not a factor. Time is not a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So is this a good place maybe to end?
Actually, the one thing I might add is that this process is a pleasure for the therapist, that it doesn't create burnout or vicarious traumatization, because the therapist moves through the image with the client, through the empathy. And I find it very stimulating and releasing and thoroughly satisfying work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Katy. This recording is part of the Somatic Mindfulness and Relational Psychotherapy podcast. See the website relationalimplicit.com.